This time, I know not the Mind Probe, episode number 100. Triple digits, Johnny boy.
We made it.
This episode is entitled, What Are You Thinking? What are you thinking?
What were you thinking? Welcome to No, Not the Mind Probe. I'm underwater. I was trying to be as a bubble. No, not the Mind Probe. I know it sounds like I'm stupid though. No, not the Mind Probe. That's not. Not really what I was going for. Yeah, I'm underwater. That's my impression.
Yeah,
that's my impression. That's how you do a really good impression. Is you just say the line and you're like, "But I'm underwater." That's actually my original accent work. Used to be. I would say the line and then like, but German. And
Right.
people would be like,
Right.
"Oh, all right,
It's
yeah,
more like
right,
subtitles for your accent.
yeah." It's like, okay, I get it. Yeah, but we're underwater to do a podcast where we watch and rank, which is what this is, where we watch and rank the first 300 Doctor Who stories. My name is John Grant, and I'm a lifelong Doctor Who fan. I've been watching it for 40 years.
My name is Porter Mason. John's been asking me to watch Doctor Who for 28 of those years, and five of those years ago, I finally said yes. So each episode we look at.
But
two
I keep
stories.
asking. That's the interesting thing is we keep rolling that data because I continue to ask you even though you are watching.
I said yes. By the way, we of course record these episodes exactly when you hear them, like right before the moment you press play.
Yeah,
that's when we've recorded.
We're done.
But weirdly, even though we recorded this episode 2 weeks after the previous one, I'm still wearing my Kamala Harris.
Well, you're
shirt.
all in on Kamala.
Yeah, but why am I wearing the same outfit 2 weeks ago? So I'm gonna, if you can just vamp a little, John, just vamp.
All right, you're gonna shift outfits. Well, this is ruining the magic. Oh, I thought you were gonna take off your shirt and then we're gonna bring in the ladies and the gay men with some shirtless action. I was saying I thought you were gonna take your shirt off. Then we're really gonna bring in
too hot for TV.
Sex sells, people.
Mrs. Probe does not allow that kind of exposure of the goods. She calls them the goods.
Yes. And congratulations on 100 episodes of uninterrupted podcast. I mean, just beginning to end, not a single gap.
If you're coming to this podcast with this episode, welcome, first of all.
Yeah.
Weird place to start, but welcome.
No, a lot of people jump in at 100. They're like, you know what? All right, I'll give it a whirl.
To you, this will be a very regularly occurring podcast because you now have 100 episodes to listen to at your leisure, at your convenience.
Yeah. So if we miss a week or two, just go back and pick up one of the old ones.
Yes, not a problem.
You just slot that right in and ignore the part where we talk about going in order. Yeah.
Now, normally what we do is each of these, if you are new, or just, first of all, this whole episode is focused on you. If you're a new viewer, this is for the new viewers, this episode.
Yeah.
And so I'll explain what we do.
Yeah.
Each episode of this podcast, we look at 2 Doctor Who stories. First, we look at one from the newer Whoer episodes that are newer and Whoier that started in 2005. We're going through that in order. We're in the Peter Capaldi years. Clara's on her last legs. She's the engine is kind of puffing out smoke on Clara.
We're knee deep in Capaldi, and Clara is grimly hanging on.
And then John pairs that story, whatever one we're on, and with a classic Doctor Who story. So what are we looking at this episode? Well, you mentioned water. I mentioned water. Something's going on. I'm feeling something with water.
Yeah.
I'm like one of those mentalists. Like, do I feel something with water, I believe.
It's beginning with W. Yes. We are moving on in the second Capaldi season here.
We're not going back.
2-parters. Yeah, we do not go back. We're not going back again, Kamala. We're not going back. This is under the lake and before the flood, which at least makes slightly more sense as episode titles than the last two. The
Yeah,
Magician's Familiar, which is familiar, which
Apprentice
is whatever.
and
And because this one takes place under water,
sure,
but also some complex time paradoxy things. But I didn't reach too deep into the old theme well to come up with a matching one for this, so I just went underwater again
fair enough.
and went with the Underwater Menace, featuring the second Doctor, Jamie, in his first full adventure as a companion, and Ben and Polly, who we've seen a little of. We haven't seen a ton of Ben and Polly, and it's basically Patrick Troughton's early Patrick Troughton is only his third story. So yes, the infamous Underwater Menace.
All right, so let's recap these episodes.
Let us.
We're gonna start with the NuWho. So where are we at here? Where this is story number 255. It aired the 3rd and the 10th of October 2015. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the 3rd and the 10th, one after another,
Gosh,
right?
9 years ago. That's crazy.
Yes. Yeah, 19 years ago. We have the 12th Doctor, we have Clara, and we've got some other folks we'll talk about in a bit.
A whole lot of people.
A two-parter. Again, so this means this was 90 minutes of television. Did it need to be? I don't know.
No.
We'll discuss that. So we are in Scotland in the future,
don't
which of
forget
course
the clip.
the future is Scottish.
The future is Scottish.
Yeah, there's a clip. Yeah. All right.
It's a short one. It's a short one.
Here's a clip that John has
Good setup.
gathered up.
Good setup.
Okay, so the spaceship lands here, the pilot leaves the writing on the wall, so whoever sees it when they die, they become a beacon of the coordinates, while he/she/it snoozes in the suspended animation chamber.
Waiting for his/her/its mates to pick the message up. My God. Every time I think it can get more extraordinary, it surprises me. It's impossible. I hate it. It's evil. It's astonishing. I want to kiss it to death.
Yes. It's a shorter clip for us, but that monologue, I just love Peter Capaldi's monologue there. I want to kiss it to death. Yeah.
So Clara and the Doctor arrive in a mining facility, and we find out that, and they probably got there accidentally, as you do.
Yeah, can't remember why I got there.
The crew there is going through a weird thing where they go at night. They all have to huddle in this one part of the ship because at night ghosts come out, and the Doctor's repeated like, well, there's no such thing as ghosts. We'll get to the bottom of this. But and they've had a crew member die. They have become one of these ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
So they start looking into it. And the ghosts act like you would think of as ghosts. They pass through most objects. They can interact with metal. They only come out at night. They completely disappear when day. And by the way, day and night are complete just fabrications. They're not even they're in space. Like there's not even a thing.
No,
they're on an asteroid, right?
Quite accurate. Day and night are social constructs, a lot like race or gender. Exactly. So yeah, and this is very woke.
Right. Exactly. They should just have non-binary times of day.
I don't know why you got to be one or the other.
So the 12th Doctor, Clara are there, and of course they're like, let's solve it all. And so, I mean, here's my whole thing with this whole episode. I'll explain some of it, but the whole thing feels like something that, like, and we've talked about this with time travel, paradoxy type episodes before, playing with time travel.
Mm-hmm.
They're either like amazing and you stick the landing and you're like, that was one of the coolest things. How did they possibly figure all that out? Or it's like this, which like, it's not bad. It's just somehow in the middle of it, you kind of get lost and muddled and you're like, okay, I'm not sure. It doesn't feel like this brilliant rabbit out of a hat thing. And if it doesn't feel like a rabbit out of the hat thing, then it just feels like a slog for some of it. You're just trying to get through it. So we find out that the ghosts, which I will ask you, it's never clear to me by the end of this, are they just actually ghosts or something else? It's never made clear to me what they are.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I also
So,
this episode confuses the hell out of me as well. I have no
okay,
idea.
so because they what they figure out is that the ghosts, I'm just call them that,
Yeah.
are chanting this thing. It's a code. It's a very like detective work type show. Reminded me a lot of The Mummy on the Orient
Yeah.
Express
Yeah. We work out what's going
episode.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out what's happening. They're saying this code. They find the code is written on a part of the ship. They realize what they're actually giving out are coordinates, so they follow those coordinates to find out where they are. Where it gets them to is, of course, like Earth. I think in like England or Wales or something.
Yeah.
All coordinates lead back to the
Yeah.
United
All
Kingdom.
back. Well, they go back in
And
time to where the lake was.
yeah.
Before
Right.
before it was a lake. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we find out that at that moment, they're transporting, and there's some clues there where the ship they're transporting, there's one battery missing, and there's a capsule that's not there, not supposed to be. Anyway, when they go back in time, they find that they're actually transporting this dead commander, some evil guy,
He's very tall.
very tall,
Yeah.
and there's a person there with him who is one of the ghosts that we see later.
Yeah, and he's one of those. It's a callback to the creatures that were in the hotel. That David Williams played one of them.
Civilians,
Yes, the Civilians, and they always surrender, and they're always
Yeah, which are
invaded.
clever. It's a
Yes.
clever race. Yes, they're the most taken over race of people in the universe.
Yeah.
So then this evil guy is called the Fisher King.
Yeah.
What we ultimately find out is that it is sort of coordinates to try to get someone to come.
And by the way,
stop-
did they? Why is he called the Fisher King? Because the Fisher King is a reference to the Holy Grail myth, I believe, or maybe even.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah,
that.
and yeah.
No, I don't know. He's just a scary, very cool looking warrior.
Played by a someone from a rock band, from a rock and roll band. This is he's apparently
Rock
a very
and
tall guy from a band.
Peter Serafinowicz.
There you go. Sure.
Well, he's the voice. Yeah, but he's an actor too, because he's in a bunch of the. Well, he may be in the. I'm sure he is. I'm sure you're right about being in a band.
He's in.
for
I
some
think he's
reason
in
don't
some
know that.
famous rock band like the Beatles. Probably the Beatles. Is there a really tall guy in the Beatles?
He's also the voice of Darth Maul, which is interesting.
Well,
I know him from
alright.
comedy stuff because he was in Shaun of the Dead and some of those. So I don't know.
I'm gonna do my research.
look into
while you
that.
Keep talking. Yeah.
So anyway, we're saying all this about this character. This character is completely impenetrable to me. I don't. So he's done this thing to have these ghosts because he's trying to have these ghosts kill more and more people. Those ghosts will then give out those coordinates, and eventually the signal of these coordinates of these apparent ghosts giving out these coordinates will be such that his people will come back and rescue and reanimate him or something like that. And the way that the doctor gets around this is, and that's the cliffhanger, is that the doctor becomes one of these ghosts for all the world. That is what happens. And you see the doctor as one of these ghosts. Then they get into some tricks later where one of the ways they trick the ghosts is they show holograms of some of the other people.
Yeah.
And get them to move around like this. And as we finally get to the end of the story, where the doctor sort of uses time travel to add in a new information that they're transmitting instead of the information that they are, he basically changes the time loop. And I don't know, like it's one of those like, and then the doctor wins, and then but the thing that was so confusing to me is that okay, the doctor foils this plan, okay, excuse me, but then when we come back, we're like, oh, but somehow in the doctor foiling this plan, like he died, like we saw his ghost, and it's like, oh no, that was one of the holograms. But that makes no sense to me because the hologram appears like outside of the ship and in all these places. I'm like, what? That doesn't make like none. It just doesn't make sense. And so at certain points in this, because you're like, oh, this is like a mystery and you're following along, you're like, oh, how's this going to work out? But then you do get bogged down in sorry, I should mention too, the reason I brought up the ghosts is halfway through the episode, the doctor does one of these things where he's like, I think they actually are ghosts. This is amazing. Like we're seeing ghosts. Never comes back from that. I don't think so. So then I'm like, so are they? Are we just saying that there is this concept of ghosts and that is what happens? Like, I
Are
was
they maybe
waiting for that
ghosts or
to.
things that happen in time?
I don't know. But then that's not what he was. And then so he goes and breaks this loop. And again, it's very tricky. I'm not like the writer is a Toby Whitehouse,
To
sorry.
yeah, who's done a bunch of
And
Doctor Who,
it's
yeah.
not that like it's more of that like this would have been a challenging thing to pull off. And I don't think it was quite pulled off. And there were moments in it where it was enjoyable, but by the end of it, you were just like, I I'm not sure what happened. Plus I think the there are other things, breadcrumbs left in there, let's say, that are interesting, but I'm not sure. Like the commander is deaf and she
Yeah, I
has
like that. That was cool.
someone in there to sign, and that ends up kind of being a thing. There's a nice moment at the end where they're sort of like they kill one of the people on the crew, which to our point from last episode, um look, this crew is being scared of these ghosts, whatever's not working out. But Clara pushes them to go into this thing, and then one of them dies, and she's like, "Yeah, that's what happens." And it's like,
That's life.
whoa, like I don't know, like she really is pretty fast and loose this
Yeah.
season. Clara is, and including with essentially like these other people's lives, like uh, she's
She's
sort of being,
very happy to risk her life, right? She's like, she'll be
yes,
bait and whatever. Like, she's at least she's not like, here, you do it. But
no,
yes,
yeah, she
in
goes with the,
doing that,
but she
she
encourages
drags
them
other
to
people
do the
into it.
same.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So
I
yeah,
can't
and
help
I'm
you.
sorry,
I
I
have,
mentioned,
yeah,
and this is related to, it's a bootstrap paradox. This
which
is
is a
mentioned in some of the things I read about it,
which the doctor
which is like,
explains with a guitar. You know, it has to play the
yeah,
guitar, plays Beethoven's, and there's like a scene where he's just addressing the camera, like basically, right? Remember, there's an opening where he's just explaining the
yeah,
bootstrap paradox to camera while playing his guitar, which is very
which again
odd.
was in the rider for the season. I get to play
Yeah,
guitar
I
once
get to
an
play the
episode.
guitar. Yeah, I can't help on this one. I don't understand. I've seen this now 4 or 5 times, and I don't. A honestly, I fall asleep through it a couple times, which is not good. And then B, yeah, I can't follow it. I don't quite understand, or maybe I'm following it when it's happening, but I can't remember it. Like every time I watch it, it's nice. Every time I watch it, it's like I'm watching it fresh because I don't remember a thing that happened. I can't remember. I don't know why is it called the Fisher King as the monster? Because again, that is a reference, and I've learned this from episodes of Criminal Minds.
Okay.
That is a reference to the Grail, the Holy Grail myth, something like that. But I don't understand what this alien is trying to get. And then yes, the Doctor is the one who floods the thing, and that's what starts the whole thing going. And I looked up. This is so the monster is played. The physical form is played by the tallest man in the world at the time. He
Oh,
passed
wow.
away from a heart attack not long afterwards because he's 7'8" or whatever. The voice is Darth Maul, but then the scream apparently makes a loud roar or scream, whatever. Is Corey Taylor, who is apparently the lead singer of Slipknot, which is a heavy
Okay.
metal band.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. And was a big Doctor Who fan, so he asked to do this.
Oh,
So
well,
yeah.
good for it.
But yes, I have absolutely no idea what is happening in this story. And as you say, it goes on for a while. It's 2 parts, and I don't think it sustains 2 parts. There are a few little moments I think that I like. They're establishing the Clara, continuing the theme of Clara is getting too comfortable with this, which is I like that. And I also like she's softening him. And it's a very funny bit. If you pause it and look, they're pretty entertaining. Where he's talking to the crew, and he says the wrong thing. And she's like, note cards. And he pulls out, he
Oh, I
clearly
love
worked on the
that.
note cards or whatever.
Yes.
And like, one of them is like, I'm very, very sorry about the loss of your loved one / pet / like friend or whatever.
Yes.
And like, and I was like, all right, like that. That's very witty and
Now,
funny.
because I watched this episode in the last before on our like, and I didn't watch Doctor Who during our hiatus here
Mhm.
for about 6 months. That was the note card thing started with this episode.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time
Oh,
we've
that was
seen it.
great.
But I like the idea that she's coaching him or trying to make him better, which is
And
very,
then
and
he's
it's very funny.
trying, and he's like a little child, like,
Yeah.
I am sorry for, like, I don't know. I know I'm supposed to do this. I don't know why. Like,
Right. Because basically they're like, our crew members, he's like, this is awesome. And they're like, our crew member is dead. And he's like, right. So I think that's quite clever.
that was very good.
They have the characters are interesting. There's some interactions, and they have his enthusiasm for the mystery. I do like the deaf character. I thought what was cool about it was she just is deaf. Like, it's not like it's hugely central to the plot. They do have a thing where she can feel the vibrations that the person's behind, but it's not like it doesn't turn on like suddenly something that a deaf person can do. She just is deaf.
Yeah.
And it's not like a big. It's just there are deaf people in the world, and they,
But it does
so I
play into
enjoyed
the one
that.
scene, like it's
Yeah,
just
where
part
he's
of the
following
reality.
her. Yeah, and how she experiences the world. I like
Sorry, I
that.
just hit the microphone for everyone
It's all
listening.
right.
I
Yeah,
apologize for
yeah.
that.
And so, obviously portraying anyone who's differently abled is woke. And so I object to it on the grounds that it is
All this
subjecting people to the woke mind
DEI,
virus. Yeah,
Dr.
right.
DEI.
Right. You hire anyone who's not just a white male. It's disgusting.
really
but I'll let it go.
Can't stop from coming back to when they got to the end of the episode and things wrapped up, and then it was like, so we're just not going to mention that ghosts are real? Because and we've talked about this with past, especially Stephen Moffat episodes. This wasn't Stephen Moffat, but it's in the Stephen Moffat showrunner area, where sometimes he will just be like, yeah, maybe angels, maybe there are angels. Like, he does stuff like this.
Yeah.
And that could be actually fine if that's the take they want to make. Like, maybe we'll never know. Maybe they were echoes of the past, whatever.
Are
but
explained, but I can't remember why.
I listened. I thought, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Write in, please, Porter at mindprobe.show. But I not only do I not think it was mentioned at the end, I think it was like we never even, like, the characters in the show never returned to be like, I guess they were really just ghosts. Because remember, it was ghosts of people they knew.
Yeah,
and
people they were killed, right?
And then they went away.
And they would pop up as a ghost. Yeah.
But then why did the ghosts go away? Why are they like, ghosts only exist because the Fisher King does something? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and there's something with this thing, the words on the side of the thing, and you looked at them and they showed up in your eye, and I don't understand it.
All right, let's move on to our classic episode,
which makes way more sense.
Well, it actually is in ways pretty straightforward. The plot itself is very, very straightforward. It's called The Underwater Menace. This is season 4. It's story number 5. This is the 32nd Doctor Who story of all time. A 4-parter, blessedly, a 4-parter.
Could have sustained 7 though, but I think
aired January 14th through February 4th, 1967. This is our second Doctor, and you mentioned it's Jamie Ben and Polly, but it's Jamie. So this is right after the Scottish one, the Highlanders.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'll mention before I played the clip, I watched this. There's a complete animated version of it.
Yeah.
Which is just how I found it most easily. So that's what I plunked down my $9.99 for that. But there apparently some of it is available, the original episode.
Yeah, I think it's 1 and 3 might be in thrilling real vision.
So so none of them are in the actual just video.
No. Yeah, 1 and 3 are video. Right, 1 and 3 are. So 3 existed for a long time, I believe, and then they found 1 not long ago. And then they animated 2 and 4.
So I mean, look,
but you watched all 4 animated.
I watched the animated, which is much easier for me to deal with. But I will say, take a look at some of the stills and images from the original one, because the costumes are just a tour de force.
It is something.
We will play the clip now that John has found of the Underwater Menace.
But Professor, yes? Even supposing you succeeded, you know what will happen, don't you? You tell me, Doctor. Well, the water will be converted into superheated steam, the pressure will grow, and crack the crust of the Earth. Destroy all life, maybe even blow the planet apart.
Yes, and I shall have redeemed my promise to lift Atlantis from the sea. Lift it to the sky.
It will be magnificent. Yes. Bang! 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 Bang!
Like so.
Yes. Just one small question. Why do you want to blow up the world? Why? You, a scientist, ask me why? The achievement, my dear doctor. The destruction of the world. The scientist's dream of supreme power.
Well, we talked last episode. Do you need subtlety and in a bad guy? Do you need to know their reasoning, and do you need subtlety and nuance? And I think the answer is no, you don't. This episode answers no, you don't.
I love
the
the scientist's dream to destroy the world. It's like, yeah, that's what they're all in it for.
They should take for granted. It's like, don't all scientists deep at their core want to destroy?
This is what the Trump administration believed Dr. Fauci was. This is him. Like, Dr. Fauci is the Zaroff of.
I love the idea that it's like, I'm going to raise Atlantis, not just to the surface of the Earth. It's just going to keep going into the universe. All right. Well, look, Polly, Ben, and Jamie, who, and how long were Polly and Ben around before Jamie?
Not long. So the Polly and Ben joined in the War Machines, and then I think there's the Smugglers, and then the 10th Planet. So they only did like 3 with Hartnell, and then this is only like their 6th epispe. So
they're fast friends. I mean, as we'll see, Ben and Polly leave. Jamie sticks around for longer. He's just kind of a better companion. He's just he's up for everything. But they arrive in Atlantis. I mean, so that's where they arrive. They get there.
Well, they show up on the beach, and then they just go down into a cave, and they're like, "Hey, it's Atlantis." And it's like, "Oh, it turned out to not be that hard."
Hey guys, it's Atlantis. So the doctor, so they're gonna sacrifice them, and the doctor pulls the old, "How do you prevent from being sacrificed? You just say, 'I know something,'" and then they bring him down. I've got a secret. And then they say, like, "Okay, we'll take you down. Tell us your secret." Not until you take my friends off. And then he gets in and sees Dr. Zaroff and says, "Well, I actually didn't have a secret." The Dr. Zaroff says, "You know what, though? I like the cut of your jib.
Yeah, you seem like funny. A guy I can work with."
And Dr. Zaroff is played by essentially like Chico from the Marx Brothers. Like, I'm gonna blow up these. I mean, I know he's Eastern European, but he's just such a caricature. This guy. I'm sure you'll talk more about the actor.
That is a true loss, is that Chico was never in Doctor Who.
He really should have been. Yeah. So here too, they're in Atlantis, but Atlantis is an undersea world. That. What they have is they have fish people. They have used science to convert people into fish. Is that Zaroff who did that?
Yes, I think that's right. Yeah, he's got a bunch of people working for him, and they all seem to be converting.
But I mean, the Atlanteans, did they have that before Zaroff? These fish?
No, I think no. So I think fish people must have existed before, maybe. Okay. But then maybe you could also turn people into fish people, because he tries to do that to Polly, right?
Yeah, right.
And they're sort of the slave class of Atlantis. They're the laborers.
Have some conversion therapy, which works. Always works.
Always, people, if you get nothing from this podcast, conversion therapy works.
Therapy works.
Yeah. I was a heterosexual before.
Right. Go anyway.
You're like, you're not that interesting, but if you were gay, maybe you'd got a little cachet or something.
That's
so
right.
They sent me to reversing the other conversion therapy.
So they convert some people into fish just to become slaves to harvest food for the other Atlanteans. Yes. And the other Atlanteans just are down at the bottom. They're doing fine. But they kind of want to go back up. And the scientists, Dr. Zaroff apparently wandered into this cavern as well at some point. He's a famous scientist. The doctor knows of him. And
is it explained why they can't just... They're
come out of the cave?
Yeah, right. Just go up. like what if you just went out?
If they wanted to get some takeaway or whatever they wanted to do.
No, we got to raise the real estate. We can't afford to buy into present day real estate prices. So we got to have our own stuff come up.
So then we get to this scene where he reveals the plan, and this is the plan. He's like, I'm going to raise Atlantis. It's of course we've always wanted to raise Atlantis. I'm going to do it. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to blow up the entire planet. And why, do you ask? Because why not? It's like why do you climb a mountain to get to the top? Like, that's why you do it. And it's just, that's his whole reasoning. It's amazing.
Yeah,
and
wonderful.
Later on in this, the doctor just says to the other scientists, like, by the way, you realize he's going to blow up the world. They're like, wait, what? And I like that the doctor puts it together so quickly, because it is true. Like, his plan, if these other people are so-called scientists, they're just pumping steam all around everywhere. It was like, it would blow up everything. We're going to drop cold things directly into the Earth's core, it would have a bad effect. Anyway,
right,
it's just
because the idea
funny.
is like we're gonna, I guess the crust would
Yeah.
crack while we raise it, and then all the water would pour into the hole.
We're essentially going to drain the
it.
oceans to bring
Yeah.
Atlantis up.
And then the
But
doctor has to, in a lengthy scene, has to illustrate it by putting a boiling pot, and then be like, "Huh?
and the scientists are like, wait a minute. Anyway, so Polly and Ben are going around. They meet two Scottish sailors who ended up here. They're
Welsh.
bizarre.
They're miners. They're Welsh
Oh, I thought they were
miners.
Scottish. They said.
I
Anyway,
think they're Welsh. Yeah.
so they end up Sean and Jacko. They're there. By the way, Sean, Jacko, and Ben and Jamie. Polly's been kidnapped to your point.
Yeah, of course.
Trying to convert her into fish person
Regularly.
Ben and Jamie and Sean and Jacko become so familiar with each other so quickly.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible. They ultimately, the plan they realize is it's all about organized labor, and they realize if the workers of the world would unite, all right, and
very subversive
against their masters, that they tell the fish people, who, by the way, Sean, I guess, gives this speech, or does Ben? I forgot.
Yeah, both
Sean
of them.
does.
But yeah, I think Sean does.
Anyway,
Yeah, it is like a union yes speech.
But first they berate the fish people and say, like, these people are garbage. They're not even worth my time.
Yes. And then the fish people throw things at them for a while.
They throw little shells like shells, which then they're berated for that. But then they say, you should rise up against your oppressors. And that's enough for them. This one speech, it's so amazing.
And then you get the beautiful, which does still exist on film, the beautiful 2-minute fish sequence where they're all floating around doing stuff, and then they stop doing stuff. And it's just lengthy with like this ethereal music.
Because the one woman is trying to get across the message to the other, the si se pueda, like message, you know.
And then they stop working. And I will say the impressive thing about it is like they're all on wires. They're not obviously they're not really underwater.
I
only saw the
cartoon of this.
You should watch the actual sequence. It's quite impressive in a terrible sort of way.
So anyway, the fish people rise up, and then they free Polly, and Zara fakes a seizure. It's just great. And
they're like, "Oh my god, he's hurt!" And it's like he's doing the like, it's the big one. It's like Red Fox doing like, I'm coming for you. It's the big one. Yeah.
Now they do prevent the world from being destroyed. Good.
Yes. Yeah.
That's in the pro column. The con is they do destroy Atlantis and send radiation through all of it.
Yeah, I just feel like that's gone.
So
and then Zara horrifically drowns. Yeah.
Do the Atlanteans come up top then? Like, what happens now in history?
Maybe they're still down there.
And what time is this? This is in 2100. It says
5 o'clock. It's
No,
the
it
future. I
says-
believe it is the future.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's about.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It doesn't have an exact.
Maybe
date.
not now. Yeah, I'm not sure what happens to the Atlanteans now that I think about it. I guess they're okay living underwater anyway. So they.
Literally, the rest of that crew, the doctor's crew, kind of like wipe their hands, like, well, about time for us to be moving on. They head out, and by the way, they do the thing where they're like, I don't think you know how to take this TARDIS anywhere. And it's like, but I do, and then he doesn't, and it goes to like,
yeah.
It's just it's such a weird. The tones are really weird. It's like sort of funny sometimes, but then not really.
It feels like a very
so out there.
Yeah, and one of the most famous lines from the entire series is I think it's the episode 3 cliffhanger where it's like, "Nothing in the world can stop me now," and like that is like considered one of the famous moments of Doctor Who because it is, and in terms of being ridiculous.
But I will say that so he's fun and over the top, but and not to give, and this isn't in like my bottom of all time, I will say, but this ends up near the bottom for me because despite the kind of funness of him, it's just such a boring,
it's a mess. Yeah.
The like we mentioned the plot. It's like they find out the doctor, the evil, the scientist, the mad scientist is going to blow it up. And then eventually they get the fish people to rise up and defeat him. That's it. That's the whole plot. And it's 4 episodes, but it's like, it could have been one 25-minute thing, basically.
It feels like it's like the entire show just drops a notch in terms of intelligence. Like, it just feels like
Yeah.
the show is generally aimed at like intelligent 12-year-olds, and then suddenly it went for like 7-year-olds. And honestly, watching, so this is relatively new that they released the animated version. So watching it, I think this particular, because we've seen lots of variety of animation in the various DVDs. This one, the animation is closest to Scooby-Doo that I feel like I've seen. And then, I don't know if it was a combination of that, but the story, and I was like, oh, this is Doctor Who is Scooby-Doo. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like, they're the monsters with the masks and like the ridiculous costumes and like all, it was just like, it is Scooby-Doo in terms of, it is sort of, I mean, although frankly, I think Scooby-Doo is an excellent cartoon, and like one of the classics of all time. But in sort of the silliness, and so it does feel like it is, because this is by Jeffrey Orme, Orme. Did not write another Doctor Who after this. Was actually asked to leave the United Kingdom by Queen Elizabeth shortly after this was broadcast. But the Zaroff is played by a guy named Joseph First, who is apparently a very well-known actor. Like, apparently was a respected, or is a respected, I guess he's was a respected actor. He was in Diamonds Are Forever, the James Bond movie, as a character. Yeah, it's a so apparently Patrick Troughton was not particularly happy with this one when they were filming it, which I guess, yeah, if you signed on for like Doctor Who and your third story is this very weird story, there's a lot of Polly treating Polly as a the woman, and sort of condescending sexism to her. It's also a wonderful line at the beginning where they're meeting they're on the beach and they're meeting the weird people who are going to take them underground. I think Ben just goes, "Polly, you speak foreign." She tries like French or like a few other things. It's just like, oh, that's the 60s. Why? I remember this character Ara, who's the one of the like support staff or whatever for the scientists, and like the doctor asks her to take the note to Zaroff or whatever. She's just immediately like, oh, okay. Like, she immediately becomes his ally with no readily apparent reason, and is like, I've got to rescue Polly, and I've got like, it's just yeah, it's they took the whole it's like, yeah, they just dumbed the show down by a surprising amount. And this is what we got. And I don't know if someone wasn't paying attention or asleep at the switch, or they're just like, we need a story. It's a weird.
I am just watching the YouTube of the actual Wired underwater moment. It's titled "The Underwater Insanity" is the title of the YouTube video, and it is fairly accurate.
It's got that weird music. It's got dun, 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 dun. It's got a weird.
No,
music.
well, I have it muted now, but now I didn't realize in looking through this. So the animated one that I watched, the full animated recreation, only just came out last year.
Yeah.
And so it looks like this really hadn't been seen in full for really until then. Like,
yeah. So again, I don't know. Episode 1 was rediscovered not too long ago, and so I think that's why they were sort of holding it back, or hadn't done the full thing. But yeah, it was a while. It was not long ago that they discovered it. One of the lost episodes somewhere. Not one everybody wanted. Like, not one that people were like, we really need the Underwater Menace back. It is not a highly regarded story.
episodes underwater, they don't get too far. Land is required, and plot, and characters. But both of these episodes have none of that. They're just so bad. All right, we are adhering to the repeating themes here on No Nothing Mind
When's it
Probe.
my theme? Wouldn't I love?
We like to talk about subjects and topics that are threaded throughout Doctor Who and all of time and space. John, what did you want to talk about?
Nothing really. Let's just go to the next segment.
Just want to catch up. How you doing?
Well, let's say so. Let's talk about the Doctor's costume actually, because
Okay.
Peter Capaldi wears a bit different take, I think, and so this season in particular, he begins to. So the first season, he kind of had the fancy like cloak and whatever, and waistcoat and all that, and I think he makes a joke one that he was going. He looks like a magician or something. But then he started. This one changes up. He's got the sweater and the last one as well. And then Underwater Menace famously has a number of sequences where the Doctor is dressed up in costume, right? He's trying to disguise himself, and they're unconvincing. He's like a pirate, I think, at one point in this one, even an eye patch or something like that. So yes, some variety to the Doctor's costume. And obviously, as part of the show, what the Doctor's clothes are sort of iconic, at least in more recent and certainly a significant part of the character. And certainly so this is an interesting thing in like, so certainly, you had Hartnell and Troughton, who were kind of in costume, but it was pretty, it was pretty normal. Anybody could have roughly, it was a suit basically, and whatever. Then you have the third Doctor who has an iconic look, although interestingly, it changes regularly. Like he's always wearing a different coat and a different waistcoat and a different, whatever. He's always got a very different look. And then you have the fourth Doctor who becomes sort of the iconic costume with the scarf. And that changes several times, but he's always got the long scarf and the long coat. And then you have Peter Davison and Colin Baker and Sister McCoy, who are very much in costumes, right? They're very much like, they're in that
the question marks.
and like they're very much in a costume. Then you get Eccleston, who's pretty. He could be street clothes, but and then
it could be street clothes, but notably, he didn't change. It's the same thing every time.
Same thing every time.
He's
then
an action figure, like
By season, Tennant, I think, changes the suit, and then Smith does the same thing, and Capaldi a little bit. But yeah, it's like so. And then Jodie Whittaker, as we'll see, she kind of has a similar costume. Then Ncuti, famously, in at least so far, has changed outfits every single episode. So everybody's losing that. But yes, it is interesting. What is the Doctor's costume? Important. One of the criticisms of some of the later series is like, well, he's not a real person now. He's wearing a costume, right? Like he's wearing a Halloween costume. And it's like, just normally he'd be a regular person, and your regular person changes clothes. So I mean, well, what is your favorite look for the Doctor? Which one do you? They're like, that's the one I think would be is
these
the
last three
quintessential
Doctors.
look.
Well, actually, I like the. Wait, the ninth Doctor is the new
Eccleston, with the leather jacket. Yeah,
I've liked the outfits of. I actually like any of the ones that don't feel. The reason those ones feel like costumes is because they have things in them, like I mentioned, the question marks that feel like nods to.
Yeah,
it feels like breaking the fourth wall, really. Like I didn't mind the kind of cricket bat, and that one to me was like near the edge of it, but like that's okay. But it's really those last two, and I don't remember the costume from the movie. What was that like?
He was dressed as Wild Bill Hickok. Remember, he literally found a costume. So it's actually a literal costume. He finds because for some reason, if you remember in the movie, for some reason, everyone dresses up in costumes on New Year's Eve, which apparently is, I don't know if British people think that's what happens or what, but anyway. And so yes, he finds it in the hospital locker, and the guy's going to the Halloween costume.
Oh, that's kind of a cool outfit, to be honest.
Yeah, and so he's dressed as Wild Bill Hickok, and then they've subsequently updated the Eighth Doctor's costume, so he's got a little more of a sort of a adventurer, like a Edwardian, or not a Jules Verne-esque kind of adventurer look to him, I guess, instead of that costume. So yes, but I mean, obviously, we only have really one or two Eighth Doctor on screen moments.
So yeah, the only ones I really don't like are those. I guess those two. The
sixth Doctor's the coat of many colors. Yeah,
yeah.
And the seventh has the question mark umbrella and the question mark sweater, and it's a lot of question marks.
Because again, it's breaking the fourth wall in the sense it's like it's Doctor Who. It's like but they don't. That's not. He doesn't call. That whole thing.
Yeah, he doesn't. Call himself that.
So it's a lot. But I think all the rest of them, I don't mind them not changing clothes. Just from the idea of what I like is that, and I think we saw with not so much, I don't remember with Capaldi, but I feel like with Matt Smith, where they sort of find their outfit.
Yeah.
I definitely saw it with the third Doctor. I remember him doing that. like he finds that little outfit, and it's them sort of finding aspects of their personality, and then I kind of have always been okay with them just from the sense of being one of those people who are like, yeah, this is what I wear. I don't
Mhm.
know. This is it. I don't need lots of costumes. This is it. Now I'm interested to see how with Chudy, it's like, no, I do want to change. This is part of me. I don't know. Like I haven't seen more of that. Um, but that's what I always wrote it off as of like you're you're Steve Jobs or something, like it's like this is what I wear. Like this is my thing. So I don't mind that. I didn't. You're saying Peter Capaldi changed his outfit?
So he had sort of again, they joking called it like a magician's thing. He had like a
Like a
cloak,
velour type thing.
and a sooty thing, and then now in this season he has like a sweater that I think has stars on it, or it looks dirty, but apparently it has stars on it.
Oh,
And he's got a couple different looks that he alternates in this season. I think he switches it up quite a bit. David Tennant changes suits a couple times. He's got a blue suit and he's got a striped suit. He's always got the shoes.
now one thing with David Tennant in particular, but also would be the case for Capaldi and any of them, actually the Eighth Doctor too, who are wearing very, very formal wear, but then having these adventures. That's just more personally, I hate wearing this stuff. And so when I see people and I'm like, how are you moving around in that? Now, I'll give it to David Tennant, is that like he's so slim that he seems to be able to run around in like a double-breasted, not double-breasted, but like tightly buttoned up suit, but he like seems to move very fluidly. Like that makes no sense to me. Like, but I don't know. He doesn't look uncomfortable.
Maybe it's a British thing. There's it's maybe a class thing too. It's sort of obviously not recent times, but like just remember this. If you've ever seen the oldish British show, Keeping Up Appearances. This is a sitcom with sort of a snobby woman trying to pretend she's more upper class than she is, and like her husband Richard goes out to do the gardening like on a Saturday, and he's in a tie and like a sweater. Like he's like out there working in a tie, and that does feel like back in, maybe not that year, but like a few generations ago, that is what you did. Like everybody was always in a tie and a jacket or something like that. So yeah, it captures that a little bit. Because the Doctor is supposed to be a little bit out of time and have these different. I mean, they spend an enormous amount of time on these costumes, right? The costume designers, like choosing the Doctor's costume is like a huge process, and the actors involved, and they're really trying to figure it out. So they clearly work very hard to sort of come up with this iconic look to the character.
Oh, I see I'm seeing question marks on the lapels in the Fifth Doctor as well.
Fifth Doctor had them, and then Tom Baker, I think at the very end, had a couple, but at the very, very end. Yeah, it's an interesting. I don't. So the criticism that's been happening, one of the criticisms that Shooty got was character is a little bit is like, well, he doesn't have a set look. And like, maybe he should have like one thing that is kind of, and they early on they had some pictures of him in like an orange suit or whatever, and they were like, this is him. And then he wore that like twice or something like that, and like, never mind. And it's interesting, and I don't know how much of this comes into it, is now in modern fandom, you have to deal with cosplay, which is a big thing, right? I mean, like, these you go to these conventions and Comic-Cons and things like that, and everybody dresses as people spend, a great deal of time and money and effort to create these costumes that are as close to the authentic versions as they can. And so, I mean, I think producers who are conscious of fandom are conscious of that and are like, okay, well, we got to do something that people are going to be like, oh, now I got to make this costume. So there is, again, this sort of thing of like, maybe this is how you get people to connect with these characters by designing and giving them some costume to really latch on to, is like, if you wear this, like, I feel like if I wore a First Doctor costume, and I didn't tell anyone what I was doing, they'd just be like, well, that guy's just wearing a slightly out of date suit.
They're eccentric. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, obviously, but by the time I get to the third or fourth Doctor, it's like, oh, he's doing Doctor Who.
Maybe the third, I don't know. The fourth,
he's doing just a very gay old guy. Yeah.
Right. The fourth, definitely. Obviously, the Ninth Doctor, yeah, you would just look like a person in a leather jacket.
Yeah.
I like that. So I'm interested to see, like, Jodie Whittaker looks like much more cash. Her outfit. I don't think Matt Smith maybe is a good mix here but it's partly just of the times, like wearing a bow tie is not that normal. So that is kind of what takes it out. Like David Tennant just looks like it's a cool
Yeah.
suit. I don't know. You're wearing a cool suit. And I don't
And
know.
I will say, so I'm not. I don't like Halloween. I've never liked it, and I don't really like costumes. But past several years we've done like
Is that your official Mind Probe statement on
yeah.
Halloween?
I'm sorry, folks. Sorry, folks. Not into it. But last several years we've done like we've sat out in our front stoop in our neighborhood to hand out candy, and so we have to do costumes. And so I have done a Matt Smith costume because all you got to wear is like blue pants or brown pants or something, and I have a little brown jacket, and then you wear a bow tie and a fez.
The
And carry a
fez,
sonic
yeah.
screwdriver, and it's just like, oh, and so it's interesting. Like Matt Smith, yeah, those two things, and they fixated on them even in dialogue and stuff of like the bow ties are cool,
Fezes
and
are
he would
cool.
always wear the fez. And so like I can do that with very minimal effort. I can do that costume. If you put a bow tie and a fez on with something that even vaguely looks like the rest of his outfit, it's like, okay, yep, here we go.
That's probably as iconic as like the scarf. Like
Yeah,
you can
exactly. And
thing.
I have to say, having gone to a couple of Doctor Who conventions and stuff like that, possibly one of the cutest things you can see is like a little 6-year-old in a little little jacket with a bow tie and a fez, and it's adorable.
All right. Well, we're done talking about those episodes. And what
Yep.
we need to do is we need to really give it to them and rank those episodes. Now, look,
Yep.
we've ranked 198 of these stories. We're going to rank all 300 eventually.
Eventually.
We will now have the first 200 Doctor Who stories ranked after we do this.
Happy
It's amazing.
100th episode, folks.
Happy
Yeah.
100th episode.
Thanks for sticking
we
with
celebrated by watching 2 pretty shitty episodes.
it.
Pretty shitty stories. Okay, so not to bury the lead there, but I will go first. Under the Lake Before the Flood. Yeah, it didn't go in the basement for me, but it's definitely in the bottom half. And because there were lots of parts of this that I enjoyed. It just became frustrating at the end.
Yeah,
and it became one of those where it was like, I felt like I was like, do I need to rewatch this? But I was like, but I don't want to. I don't want to rewatch it, not because it was so bad, but I was like, no. I think part of it suffered from similar to classic episodes being a 2-parter. If this had been a 1-parter, but even had the same kind of confusion of the plot, I actually probably would have ended up more just in the middle, like 100 or something. But I ended up ranking it 132.
I like the idea of you just looking at the screen, being like, "What are we doing here, guys?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? What are we doing?"
I ranked
with this?
it right next to the Sea Devils, so it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Underwater Menace. So this is very not good, but it was helped for me because it was all animated, and I like the animated ones, even though it was kind of Scooby-Doo-ish. That's fine. And Zaroff was so ridiculous that he kind of brought it up a little for me because he was just so crazy. So I ended up at 138. They're actually ranked very close together. Because as I started to get down below, I was like, well, these other ones I just didn't even enjoy at all, or were very long. This was only 4 episodes. I don't know. So anyway,
it wasn't something you had to endure. Yeah, we're probably close to agreement here. I've got the Under the Lake Before the Flood at 157. It's below The Doctor, The Widow, and The Wardrobe, just above Terror of the River and Warriors of the Deep. It's fine. It's competent. It seems to be well made. The performances are fine. I do like the Clara Doctor relationships and some of the guys there. But yeah, I've as I said, I've seen it like 4 or 5 times and I can't remember. I still don't remember the plot. I've fallen asleep through it several times, and like it's just like that's sort of damning it with faint praise. I'm just like, yeah, it doesn't work for me. And as you say, I think it's too long. If it were 1 episode, it might have worked. Although I get why it's hard to do 1 episode because you have to set up so much in order to do the bootstrap plot because you got to go back in time, and it doesn't quite work. Nice effort, doesn't quite work. Underwater Menace is lower for me. It's down at 191.
Wow. So that
Yeah.
means it's in your bottom 10.
It's close to it. Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. It's just above Attack of the Cybermen and the Celestial Toymaker, below Time Flight and the Dominators. It just doesn't. Yeah, it's a mess. It doesn't feel like it's even in the same show. It's just kind of like, again, as I say, it's like they just took it's almost like they took a script from like another show, like some sort of goofy time travel show, and like, yeah, we could do this one, and didn't quite. I think they're still finding. I mean, to their credit, they're still finding Patrick Troughton's character. This is brand new. They've never, they have actually replaced the lead actor on the show 3 stories ago, and been like, I guess this is what's going to happen now. And so, obviously, there's probably still feeling things out. But yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense, and it's certainly not an episode that I would show anyone, like probably ever, unless I were doing a podcast with them where we were watching every single Doctor Who story. I don't know that this would be one that it would be interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder how this would go down if you did take someone who'd never seen Doctor Who before and was like, "You gotta see this show." Here you go.
Well, when we combine our rankings together, the Underwater Menace saved by me a little bit, but it's still at 168. It's tied with the Lazarus Experiment, which sounds good to me.
Oh yeah.
And right around the Ark, Warriors of the Deep, Curse of the Black Spot.
Yep.
And then Under the Lake Before the Flood, a little higher. It's at 149. Right next to Planet of Evil, State of Decay. So, not the best, not the worst, but not the best.
Interestingly, we are way out of whack here with the Doctor Who magazine ratings.
Right.
So, Under the Lake Before the Flood ranked number 8 in the Capaldi era. So way above, 6 above The Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar from our last episode, which we both ranked pretty high. Let's see, below. Well, there's a bunch we haven't seen yet.
I mean, we have it below everything. This is our lowest 12th Doctor.
It's above Listen, which is the one with the very sort of out of the box one with the Doctor. You go back and see the Doctor as a kid. It's above Dark Water, Death in Heaven, the Missy appearance with the Cybermen, and again the Magician's Apprentice. I don't understand why it's so high, but there it is. Apparently people like it. Whatever, people. And then
people.
This is why we had to come back. We were like, you know what? The Doctor Who fandom is out of whack, and we need to fix it. The Underwater Menace, we are not off the zeitgeist here. It is number 19 of 21. Only the Dominators, which we have seen, which is also not a great one, and the Space Pirates, which we have not listened to yet, below it. So yes, definitely in the second Doctor basement. Again, I don't feel like anybody's. It's always roughly been around there too, so it's not. We are not out of the zeitgeist on that one.
Well, if you want to see our rankings, you can go to mindprobe.show.
Do it.
You can see the rankings. You can see how I rank, John ranks, we together rank. You can do all sorts of sorting and filtering on that. You can see our watch order. You can, of course, subscribe to the podcast, and we'd love it if you did that. We just mentioned last episode we were on a 6-month unplanned hiatus there. The way you get ahead of these hiatuses is you subscribe in your little podcatcher, and then that way, whenever the episode comes up, you'll get it. All right. It's probably going to be every other week, but let's give ourselves the dispensation to do what we need to do with our own time.
We have lives.
We'd love to. So we'd love it if you subscribed. We're 100 episodes. We have 50 left. Left.
Yeah, we're in the home stretch, folks.
So we'd love that. And you can also write us if you want. Porter at mindprobe.show, John at mindprobe.show. I don't think you have been. I can check here.
No,
but,
I never checked. So actually, just write to Porter.
Just write to me.
I forgot the password for the email.
Yeah,
and also
write
the
to Porter at mindprobe.show.
Yeah, I also forgot that.
We post these on YouTube, and I imagine I'll start doing that again
comment
too.
on the YouTube. Yeah, comment on that.
Give us a
I
like.
might actually look at that.
There you go. And then, John, what do we have in store for next episode?
Okay, so most of the season is 2-part stories, and I think technically the next one is a 2-part story as well. So I could have combined them, but I chose not to because it does feel like 2 very different stories in the Peter Capaldi era, even though they are linked. So next up is just a single one Capaldi story of the girl who died. And that's Peter Capaldi and Jenna Coleman. It's Dr. and Clara, and then we have Maisie Williams, I think is her name. She's the big
From
guest
Game of Thrones.
star from Game of Thrones. Yeah. So people are excited about that. And that is, I've paired that with, and it took me several days of hard thinking to remember why I paired these 2 together. But I think I figured out the connection. But I've paired that with the next story on from the Daleks, which we just, the Edge of Destruction. So we were just talking about this, but I've paired that with the 7-part First Doctor, Ian, Barbara, and Susan story, Marco Polo. This is entirely on audio, and I'm just gonna give sort of the heads up here. It is an excellent story. I'm not sure it's best to consume it all at once, so I would recommend maybe breaking it up.
Okay.
It is on if you pay. At least I have it, so I don't know what I'm doing, but somehow it is on Spotify. You can actually find the entire audio story available on Spotify, so you can listen. So when you're working out at the gym on the rowing machine there, or you're walking the streets of. I don't know why you're not a prostitute. I don't know why you're walking the streets of New Jersey. But like, if you're
Neighborhood watch, I'm out there, ever vigilant.
There you go. You can be listening to the great Marco Polo. So I recommend checking that out.
All right. Well, I love it. I can't wait to check these out. Look, we're back in the horse, 2 episodes in a row in a timely manner. I mean, this is
it's exciting.
We're like a real life podcast.
I did have the experience of watching Doctor Who for pleasure without all the pressure.
Oh, God.
The pressure cooker of like having to watch it for the podcast and just relaxing.
That's just empty calories, though, John. That's empty calories.
It's so soothing to just be like, you know what, I can watch this and I don't have to remember any of it. I don't have to explain it or justify it to anyone. It's truly restful.
I love it. Mind Probe. That show.